These are the 7 levels of demonic attack. Level 1 is temptation. And before you decide you already know this one, you need to hear what it actually looks like in real life. Because most people who are in it don't recognize it as an attack at all. Here's what level 1 actually looks like. It's the thought that arrives when the house is quiet and the day stops demanding your attention. The one you'd never say out loud. The one that sounds almost reasonable, almost justified, given everything you've been through. Maybe it's about a relationship. Maybe it's about a decision you've been circling for months. Maybe it's about God himself. Whether he's actually good, whether he actually sees you, whether the promises you've been standing on are ever going to land. Maybe it's about who you are when nobody's watching, and whether that person is too far gone to be what you once believed you could be. The thought arrives. You don't exactly welcome it, but you don't dismiss it either. You just sit with it for a moment. That moment is level 1. Not the sin, not the decision, not the conversation, or the action that follows. The moment you sat with the thought instead of rejecting it. And here's why most people don't recognize it as an attack. Because it doesn't feel like one. It feels like thinking. It feels like processing. It feels like being honest with yourself about how you feel. And the enemy is very much aware that if he announces himself, if the thought arrives wrapped in obvious darkness, you'll reject it immediately. So he doesn't do that. He makes the thought sound like your own internal monologue. He makes it sound like a reasonable conclusion drawn from your own real experience. And then he waits. The very first move the enemy makes in Scripture isn't terrifying. It isn't violent. Genesis 3:1. Did God really say? That's it. That's the opening move of the most catastrophic spiritual attack in human history. Not a roar, not a threat. Reasonable sounding question, directed at someone who had no reason to doubt, that was left just long enough to be considered. And it worked. James 1:14-15 maps exactly what happens in that window. Desire is conceived when we are dragged away and enticed. Then desire gives birth to sin, then sin, fully grown, produces death. But the sequence doesn't start with action. It starts with entertainment. With a thought given space, it should never have been given. 1 Corinthians 10:13 tells us something critical about this level. Every temptation comes with a way out. God provides it. But you have to take it, and you have to take it quickly, because the longer you sit with the thought, the more reasonable it becomes. The more it starts to sound like your own voice, and the harder it becomes to locate the exit. Here's the honest question level 1 asks you. Everyone gets tempted. That's not the issue. The question is what you did in that moment between the thought arriving and your response to it. Because that pause, that private, quiet, nobody can see it moment of consideration, that's not neutral ground. That's where this starts. And most people at level 1 feel completely fine. Their life looks normal. Their faith is intact. They'd pass any spiritual self-assessment you put in front of them. What they don't realize is that the thought they sat with last Tuesday, the one they never acted on, the one they'd almost forgotten about, left a door open that is still standing open, and something patient is standing on the other side of it. Level 1 is just the knock at the door. Level 2 is what happens when the knock goes unanswered long enough that the thought stops feeling like an intruder and starts feeling like it lives there. Level 2 is infiltration, and this is where most people lose ground without ever realizing a battle was happening. Here's what Level 2 looks like in real life. The thought came. You didn't exactly reject it, you just didn't act on it. You moved on, but then it came back, and again, and somewhere between the 3rd and the 30th time, something shifted. The thought that used to feel foreign started feeling familiar. The thing that once made you uncomfortable stopped producing any reaction at all. That's not growth, that's infiltration. Ephesians 4:26-27 gives us one of the most practical warnings in the New Testament. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, and give no foothold to the devil. That word foothold is the Greek word topos. It means a place, a location, a piece of territory. Paul isn't describing a dramatic takeover. He's describing a small piece of ground being quietly handed over because the sun went down before the issue was resolved. A foothold isn't forced, it's granted. And it's almost always granted incrementally, through unresolved emotions, through entertainment that slowly lowered the threshold, through isolation that removed every voice that might have interrupted the drift. 2 Corinthians 2:11 says, we are not unaware of his schemes. But the tragedy is that most believers actually are. Not because the information isn't available, but because schemes by definition don't look like schemes while they're working. They look like small, reasonable individual decisions that have no obvious connection to each other. And 1 Peter 5:8 gives us a detail most people read past. The enemy prowls like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. The word prowls implies patience. A lion that is prowling is not rushing, it is not panicking, it is waiting, watching. looking for the precise moment when the threshold is low enough, the guard is down enough, the familiarity is deep enough. Level 2 is not dramatic. That's the point. It is the slow, patient establishment of a piece of ground inside a person's thought life, one unanswered knock at a time. And here's what that foothold actually gives the enemy. Not ownership, not control, not even influence yet. Just access. A place to stand from which the next level can be launched. Most people at level 2 still feel fine. Their life looks normal. Their faith is intact. They'd pass any spiritual self-assessment you put in front of them, but something has shifted in the background. A door that should have been closed is standing open, and they've gotten so used to the draft that they've stopped noticing the cold. Level 2 is the foothold forming in the mind. Level 3 is the one almost nobody sees coming, because it doesn't stay in the mind at all. It moves into your circumstances, and it starts looking exactly like a bad year. Level 3 is affliction, and this is the level that destroys people who never figure out what they're actually fighting. Here's the scene. A believer is going through the hardest stretch of their life. The diagnosis came back wrong. The finances collapsed, not from bad decisions, just from an unbroken sequence of things going sideways. The marriage is fracturing, and every time they fix one thing, something else breaks. So they go to the doctor, they see a counselor, they adjust the budget, they do everything right, and nothing moves. That's level 3, and here's why almost nobody identifies it. It looks exactly like life. It looks like a bad season. The enemy at level 3 is not doing something that announces itself as spiritual warfare. He is doing something that looks completely explainable through natural causes. So the person spends months, sometimes years, applying natural solutions to a problem with a spiritual root. Job 1 and 2 are the clearest picture of this level in all of Scripture. Job loses his wealth, his children, and his health in rapid succession, not because of sin, not because of bad decisions, because a spiritual adversary has been granted access to his circumstances, and Job has zero visibility into what is actually being orchestrated against him, looks at his life and sees loss. What Scripture shows us is warfare. That gap between what the person experiences and what is actually happening is the entire strategy of level 3. Luke 13 makes it undeniable. A woman bent over for 18 years. 18 years of affliction. And when Jesus sees her, he doesn't examine her symptoms. He identifies the root, whom Satan has kept bound for 18 years. One declaration of authority, she straightens up immediately, because the problem was never what it looked like. But here's the secondary weapon at level 3 that makes it even more devastating. The affliction isn't the full attack. It's the vehicle for something worse, lies installed in the heart while the person is at their lowest. God doesn't care. I must be cursed. This is just my life. These don't feel like lies. They feel like honest conclusions drawn from real evidence. The circumstance opens the wound. The lie walks in while it's open. Ephesians 6:12 reframes everything. The visible problem is not the actual enemy. It is the surface expression of a battle happening at a level the person has no natural visibility into. So here's the question you actually need to sit with. Is this problem persistent beyond what natural solutions can touch? Has it followed you across circumstances, across fresh starts? Does it hit multiple areas of your life simultaneously? That pattern has a name, and it is not bad luck. It is not God's punishment, and it is not permanent. But it will not yield to a better strategy. It requires spiritually authoritative, scripture-grounded prayer over the root, not just the symptoms. The enemy is counting on you to keep addressing the surface while the root grows deeper. Level 4 takes what level 3 installed, the despair, the lies, the unanswered questions, and builds permanent architecture out of them inside your mind. Level 4 is the stronghold, and this is where the attack stops being something you experience and becomes something you live inside. Here's the difference between level 1 and level 4. At level 1, the thought is a stranger. You notice it, you might even be disturbed by it. At level 4, the thought is the furniture. It's been there so long you've stopped seeing it. You're not fighting it anymore. You're just operating from within it, making decisions, interpreting relationships, reading scripture, all filtered through a lie you've forgotten you're believing. That's what a stronghold actually is, not a dramatic spiritual fortress, not something that feels dark and obvious. A stronghold is a thought pattern that has become so embedded in the way a person processes reality that they've stopped questioning whether it's true. 2 Corinthians 10:4-5 uses language that should slow everyone down. The weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but have divine power to destroy strongholds. Notice the word destroy, not manage, not work around, not make peace with, destroy, which implies that strongholds are real structures, not just bad moods or negative thinking, but actual architecture in the thought life that requires something more than encouragement to dismantle. What does a stronghold sound like from the inside? This is just who I am. God can change other people, but not this. I've tried before. It never sticks. Every time something good starts, it falls apart. That's just my life. These don't feel like lies to the person thinking them. They feel like wisdom born from experience. They feel like honest self-awareness. And that is precisely why Romans 12:2 frames transformation the way it does. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. The unrenewed mind is not neutral. It is operating under a pattern. And that pattern is producing a version of reality that may have very little to do with what God has actually said. Proverbs 23:7 cuts to the core of why this level is so powerful. As a man thinks in his heart, so he is. The stronghold doesn't just affect what you believe, it affects what you are willing to attempt, what you expect, what you'll allow yourself to hope for. It operates at the identity level, and once it's operating there, every new experience, every answered prayer, every word of encouragement, every scripture gets run through the stronghold first, and the stronghold decides whether it gets through. That's why people at level 4 can sit under genuinely anointed preaching and walk out unchanged. The message got to the door. The stronghold didn't let it in. Here's what most people do with a stronghold. They try harder. They resolve to think differently. They white-knuckle their way through another week. And that's not nothing. But it's also not what Paul said. He said the weapons are divinely powerful. Strongholds don't fall to effort. They fall to truth. Declared, prayed, stood on, and refuse to be argued with. Level 4 changes how you think. Level 5 changes how you act. And by level 5, the gap between knowing what's right and actually doing it has become the most humiliating feature of a person's spiritual life. Level 5 is oppression, and this is the level that makes people question whether their faith was ever real. Here's what level 5 looks like in real life. The stronghold has been running long enough that it started producing behavior. The sin isn't occasional anymore. It's habitual, almost compulsive. The person knows exactly what they're doing.
Oh yeah, the stream's running good. 8.2 kbytes per second. Good. Wonder how it does if I stream it here too. With the way that I set this up there, my PC, like my gaming PC that I'm talking to you on right now, it doesn't hinder any of its performance. Because all the performance is being offloaded by my other computer. That's so cool. It wants me to do this mission, but it's so fucking long. No way, I have friends that are online. Holy shit. Whoa. They redid the stats. Like, in their entireties. Okay, time to do this boring ass mission.
The pilots are coming out unscathed. Rectify that.
Always make this shit harder the second time around. You should watch my stream. start at the end. Yeah. I got knocked down last time and fucking locked this room for me. I thought we went to redo the whole mission again. Damn, that fucking sucked.
Damn, lost a little skin there. Thanks for the save, hero. Hey, can you get my left leg? Okay, fine. You talk like the emissary talks. It can't be the Nine, and that's why it has to be. No, I'm not gonna ditch you for him. Can't you have a little faith? Knock that off. Just tell Arnor to hurry up and disable that tractor beam so we can blow this fuel depot.
Good mind. See, his is like that. Mine has a cowboy hat.
Get those engines running, hero, and I'll take us out of here. We don't want to be anywhere near that dredging. One of the Nine. Bale's no emissary, but one of them's still wearing him like a suit.
Oh, that's annoying. I'm doing inconsistent frames.
What is that?
Yeah.
Start the engines. Take off as soon as you can.
The Drifter belongs with us! It's in his nature. He has so much to teach.
He isn't the mentor you want. The Drifter left your cult long ago. I can tell you're new blood, untrained. Does Dredgen Vale know you mock his name?
Not mockery. Continuity. I carry the mantle now. And I know you, Alnor. You're a Praxic warlock. You crave justice. Why die for a criminal?
The more you push to keep him, the more I'm inclined to resist. You follow in the footsteps of Guardian killers.